Welcome. This is Riding Sidesaddle. It's our first episode.
Hi, I'm Lisa.
I'm Tammy, and we are super excited.
Very excited.
So we've had a couple of snacks, several snacks even, building up some excitement to our first episode, and here we are. And we decided to choose wellness as our first episode because this is a really big topic for women. Mm-hmm. We talk about this all the time.
Yes.
Women talk about their size. They talk about their weight. We talk about how we're not where we want to be.
Yep.
We talk about how other women aren't where we think they should be when we're, having catty moments. And so we thought this would be a really good one to start with because it is something we talk about a lot.
Very frequently, regularly, whether it's with our doctors or our friends or with ourselves, even as we're trying to fit into pants or have to get something new in a different size.
Dryer shrunk my jeans again.
Damn it! Right. I need a new dryer.
That, yes. So, a lot of it comes from societal pressure. It is so easy to fall into the trap of seeing everybody's social media feeds, how cute they are. They're dressed so nicely. They're not all slouched over and someone takes a snapshot, right? Nobody posts those pictures.
Right.
We've all got millions of those, but that's not what anybody else gets to see.
Not anymore. I delete those suckers.
I mean, sometimes, yeah. Or we look at those and we cringe and we hang on to it and think really negative things about ourselves.
Agree.
I wouldn't think that about anybody else that I see in the picture, but I think it about myself. And a lot of that comes from seeing people, again, on their social media feeds. How many influencers have you seen who thankfully have done these side by side? This is what I look like in my real life when I'm not posing. And here's the side by side. This is what I look like when I am posing, and the angles and the lighting are just right.
Right.
So most of us are not necessarily aware of angles and certainly not lighting, at least I'm not, when I'm taking snapshots and selfies and, people are just taking pictures from wherever. And it's always the worst angle.
Yeah.
But I have had professional pictures taken and I look fantastic.
Right. Right. And even before this period of time where people were sharing the inside hacks about, what position you hold and what angle you take a picture on. This is an age-old type of issue. Back to when, you saw magazine covers and everything on the what was showing as to what the articles were in the magazine, 9 times out of 10, they were talking about how to look slimmer, how to pare down, how to have, bigger boobs, how to, feel healthier, what to eat to do this. So forever. If you walked into the grocery store and stood in line today, it's going to show you all of the articles around what to do to look 10 years younger. Oh. How can you have a smaller ass or a bigger ass or, I don't know, the flavor of the day.
Right. Gosh, that's really true. Even how to do your makeup to look younger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially now. What kind of hairstyles should you have as a 50-year-old to, make you look younger? There's just a lot of pressure, of standards and expectations societally. We've been talking about this as a culture forever. Even back to the phrase of airbrushing.
Oh, yeah. That's not really a phrase of the past. That's a thing. I guess now we Photoshop. We don't airbrush.
Right.
But same thing, same concept.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been around for a long time. And, then when you look in your real mirror or, for God's sakes, in the department store mirror in the dressing room, holy hell. I don't know. I don't know what marketing scheme that is, but it is not successful. None.
No.
If I thought I lost 15 pounds, I found it in the department store dressing room. Holy shit.
That's really true. Very true. I think for myself, I can remember taking pictures 30 years ago. And in that moment, thought I was, I remember when the picture was being taken, trying to suck it in.
Yeah.
Wishing I had worn a different outfit. And then that picture came around 20 years later, and I looked at it and thought, dang, girl, you looked good. Look how thin my arms were. Look how thin my waist was. I can't believe I thought I was fat then.
Right. Right.
And I'm still doing it today.
It's interesting because no matter where you are in life, it seems,
No matter
right?
what size I am, I'm always thinking, I should suck it in. I wish I were thinner. I wish
Right.
I wore a different outfit.
Right.
That gremlin in my head has never shut up. Not once.
Agree. And then when you look at that picture 5 years later,
Oh, man.
you're like, fuck, I was hot.
Look, right.
What was I bitching about?
What-
Because you
right.
look at
Why
that picture.
did I feel bad about myself?
Yeah, and you remember the moments at that time, like, oh,
Yeah.
I felt really shitty about this, or I didn't like this about myself. But now you look and you're like, you know what? I wasted a lot of self-confidence.
I wasted
Yeah.
a full 30 years
Yeah,
wishing I
feeling
looked
shitty about
different.
myself.
Yes, feeling shitty about myself, no matter what size. Bigger, smaller, like no matter what size I've been.
Yeah,
I've always thought and wished that I looked different and better than I did or do.
yeah,
We've talked about this in a snack, how my theme is comparison is a thief of joy. And that absolutely applies here. I can compare myself to, a 20-year-old on the beach. I'm not 20.
right,
I'm never going to look like that.
right.
I probably didn't look like it when I was 20.
Oh, you did,
Even though,
though.
well, I don't know if I did or not. I'm not built like a supermodel. I've never been. I'm not tall. I'm extremely short. I'm barely 5'2". Even when I weighed 102 pounds, I still didn't look like a supermodel. I've always been a little thick. I've had a bubble butt. That's just the way it is.
You know,
And until J-Lo came around and made that trendy, I was like, man, my butt's kind of big. Except I didn't even know that until someone told me my butt was big. And I
Yeah.
was in high school.
right, right. Well, first off, I knew you when you were 20, and you were a stinking supermodel. So even now, right?
Thanks for that.
You're welcome, and it's the full
'Cause
truth.
you love me.
Well, okay, but I still saw you as a supermodel, like truly,
Well, thank
right?
you for that.
Tammy is a couple of years older than me, and I saw her senior pictures, and she looked amazing. Like, you looked amazing,
Thanks.
supermodel level. And I did not one time think to myself, "Oh, girl, you're a little short, and you have a kind of a bubble butt." Maybe because
Because I
I'm
had a professional picture taken?
well, maybe because I'm a little short and I have a little bit of a bubble butt too. I mean, that could have something to do with it. We are related.
Yeah,
I was like,
there's
damn, girl, you hot.
Jeez.
So anyway, if you look back at yourself now, right? If you look back now and look back at those pictures from that long ago, you were absolutely a supermodel. Absolutely. I envied you.
Oh, geez. I didn't
Yeah.
know that's a lot. That's
No?
a real lot.
It's the truth. It's
Mm.
the truth.
Wow.
5'1" or
know
not,
that.
I don't care.
Wow.
You were smoking hot.
Thanks.
That's why I went to the same photographer as you.
Oh, that's true. You did. He's magical.
He sure is. Sensational. Aside from the fact that we were both smoking hot.
Well, there's that. Apparently.
Yeah.
In hindsight. But that's really the point of this part of this conversation, of this episode, is that in hindsight you can see it, but in the moment you can't. And I would really love to be able to get to a place where in the moment I am not just okay with where I am, but I can love myself and embrace myself no matter what I look like.
Yeah.
Why do I have to wait for someone to tell me 30 years later?
Should have told you sooner.
Yeah, you should have told me when I was 18 taking those dang pictures. I didn't know that about myself then. And I feel like that, while maybe my self-esteem has gotten better as I've gotten older, I still don't look at pictures and think, I love you.
Hmm.
And that's not right. I look at it's the comparison is a thief of joy. I'm doing it to myself.
Yeah.
I can go to the beach and not look at the 20-year-olds and think, Oh, if only I looked like you. I'm not you. I've never been you. I don't need to be you. I'm really happy and content with exactly who I am. Why doesn't that translate into seeing a picture of myself?
Yeah.
It is, I don't know if it is a societal problem or, pressure, problem from societal pressure, or if it's just me and a, terrible self-esteem. I'm not sure.
It's probably a combination of a lot of things.
Maybe.
Like I guess I have a little bit of a different view, not a lot different, but a little bit different, where if I see somebody walking down the street or, walking down the beach and they're looking fantastic, I don't necessarily like compare myself to that person. I'm like, dang, she's hot. But what I do is compare myself to a younger version of who I used to be. So I was smoking hot, like, but I didn't know it then. Right. I didn't know it then that I was smoking hot, but I look back now and I was like, man, you were fine. Like, why did you put up with all that bullshit? 'Cause you were smoking hot. I didn't know it then. Right. But now I look back and I'm like, yep, you were smoking hot and look at you now.
Look what you've done to yourself.
Yeah. How could you have let yourself get to the point that you are? And that's sad, right? Because realistically and, logically, how could I possibly be the way I was 30 years ago? Like, that's just impossible. I've lived a whole life. I've had 2 kids. I've struggled in a number of areas of my life, and it had impacts on my body. So logically, how in the world would I ever compare myself to what I was before?
You're not that same person.
Exactly.
Inside. Why does your outside need to look that way?
Exactly. So I struggle. I hear you. I absolutely hear you. Mine maybe is like slightly different. Yeah. But it is a very strange place of comparison. Mm-hmm. And it doesn't send you in a good direction at all.
In either case, right?
Right.
Again, I don't need to look at someone else to be their measuring stick, but yet I do it.
Yeah.
Even if I'm not necessarily aware that I'm doing it, it is still almost like an unconscious sort of default, I guess.
And maybe you were kind of saying, is this societal or is this me with just really bad self-esteem? But if you kind of look at the healthcare system and when you go to the doctor for your annual physical, there are statistics that you're supposed to fall within. And it's
I've never fallen inside those statistics.
I'm not sure that I did either.
Honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe in high school I did, but not since I had kids, that's for sure. Even though I wore the same size clothes afterwards, I never weighed the same. Mm-hmm. So I never was the same on those charts.
Right. And maybe that's where some of that comes from, right? Like comparing me, myself, my unique situation, my unique place where I am with life and putting it on this metric or this grid and figuring out where I fall. Am I normal? Am I outside of normal? That type of thing. It really spawns comparison. Like, that's what that is.
For sure. Right.
So, perhaps, yes, it is a level of society, right? Even to the degree that when you go to the doctor, you're being compared.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's where those charts come from, right? Mm-hmm. We take a range of normal of, it's a whole range of people, and we find somewhere in the middle and call that normal. I don't know that, depending on your body type, I don't know that those numbers are necessarily attainable or healthy unless you are able or willing to spend loads and loads of time. The equivalent of a full-time job focused on your nutrition and shopping and meal planning and cooking and then in the gym for hours and hours. I don't have that kind of time. And quite frankly, even if I did, that's not how I would want to choose to spend my time. That doesn't bring me enough joy to justify all of that.
And some people do fall into that level of norm, right? In the statistical aspect of it. And whether it comes very easily to them, whether they really have to work hard at it. There's also a whole bunch of uniqueness that other people experience, right? Like, what does your DNA say, right? What is your,
My
your
DNA says I'm
family?
going to have a big round butt my whole life.
Right. Like your family heritage, what does that say? Where does that fall into the statistics? It probably to most degrees doesn't. What does it talk about as it relates to the stage of womanhood that you're in, right? A 18-year-old body or a 16-year-old body that has never had a child before is going to respond differently than, somebody who is a mother. And
Or
then,
being a mother when you're 20 versus being a mother when you're 40.
Exactly. Or one child or three children.
Right.
Or,
Right.
am I in my late 40s and going through some, pretty hormonal types of situations that are going to cause difficulty in, whether or not I can lose weight or
gain weight, honestly.
Right.
I mean,
right.
Everyone
is unique in that manner. What has my stress level been like through my whole life? Am I carrying a belly of cortisol? Yeah,
Heaps.
right. So when you look at those statistics and the charts at the doctor's office, I suppose that's a fine marker. However, it really, we are all unique people, and there's some level of customization that needs to come along with that, rather than just comparing, yourself to, well, am I in a good place or aren't I?
Right.
Not to mention, some people, if they're, in the correct category on these charts, they might very well be in that category, but they feel like shit.
Yeah, that is
that happens
absolutely true.
A lot. Right?
That happened to me in my younger years. I don't know that I was really, I was probably on the upper end of the weight chart, I don't know that I've ever really fit in that box. I've been around the box, though. I haven't been as far away from the box
around the block, around the box, whichever.
Both of those. Not as far away from the box as I currently am, but even at that weight, I felt sick.
Yeah.
And I would go to the doctor and I would say, I don't feel right. This cannot be how I'm 25 years old. This is not, my mother runs circles around me. I have no energy. I've got brain fog. I cannot, this cannot be how I'm meant to feel. I'm 25 years old. And, I'm not intending to rip on Western medicine. As scientists and science continues to grow and know more than protocols change and things like that. My experience was that I didn't get any help. Mm-hmm. And I continued to feel terrible, despite the fact that I wasn't overweight. Mm-hmm. And I just had to honestly just play around with things myself, supplements and trying this exercise or that exercise or this diet or that diet, just trying to find something that made me feel better.
Yeah.
Even if my physical self didn't change, my physical shape didn't change very much, I was really trying to feel better on the inside at a cellular level. Mm-hmm. And so wellness, I think, to me, meant something different at a younger age. And now when I talk about it and my kids are like, oh boy, here she goes again with her coconut oil. If I have to hear about this one more time.
Put it in your eye.
You can. I did tell my husband to do that when he scratched his eye one time. It's good for that, too. This is not medical advice.
Right.
We should make that very clear. We probably should have said that at the beginning. We are not experts. In fact, we are experts in exactly nothing. Go see your doctor.
Right.
If that's what you think you need to do, you should go do that. We are not encouraging people not to do that.
Just
go
sharing
see your
our
doctor.
Experience.
That's all it is. We're sharing our experiences. So, sometimes I get onto my soapbox about things that are maybe not talked about in your doctor's office so much. And the people around me, their eyes start to glaze over, and maybe I see the whites of their eyes because they're rolling their eyes so hard. But I can't help it because for so many years I was not well. I looked well. I didn't feel well. Mm-hmm. And that translated into mental wellness and emotional wellness, relationship wellness. Wellness is, it's not just your physical shell.
It's holistic.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. It's your whole person.
If you're not in a good place emotionally, right, how apt are you to be able to focus on your physical wellness? Not very apt,
Mm-mm.
right? Either, oftentimes that like lends itself to extremes. Either I'm not going to focus on my physical wellness at all. I'm not like, if I'm not in a good emotional place, I eat poorly. I sleep a lot. I don't have a lot of activity. Some people, on the other hand, go to the opposite extreme, right? They hyper do things, and that can be just as detrimental. But, the connection between emotional wellness, mental wellness, and physical wellness, they're very tied together.
Mm-hmm. They are. I remember, I kind of touched on a little bit earlier. I didn't realize that my shape looked different than other people in my age group until someone told me.
Mm.
And that stuck with me. The comment that was used was, "You have a bubble butt."
Yeah.
And I was like, I have a what? I never even heard that term before. J-Lo was not on the scene then, so I didn't even have her to compare it to. I thought I was just, like literally like everybody else.
Yeah.
I had no idea that my shape was different.
Now that you say that, I had a boyfriend who told me something very similar. And I think back at that now. I think back at it now, and I'm like, what? Like, he told me that my profile, right? He was very specific, like very detailed in this like cut to the core comment. I looked like a lowercase b.
Oh. So you had a big butt with no boobs.
Yeah. That's how I took it. And, was my shape different? Yeah. My shape has always been a little bit different.
But I didn't realize it at the time. Did you? Until that comment?
I didn't think of it as derogatory or negative. I was just who I was. I didn't necessarily connect that it would be something so negative.
Mm.
And clearly, if you're remembering it like 30
It's a
years later,
B. Yeah.
and I'm remembering it 30 years later, that makes a big impact on you,
right.
on your self, your self-esteem and the impression of yourself. And okay, well, a lowercase b can't be a compliment, right? That can't be a compliment,
right? Yeah, I'm not sure. I wouldn't have taken it as one.
I suppose it's better than an uppercase B, but
I don't know.
At 17, that's not awesome.
That's not what you wanted to hear.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
No.
So those influences, those past comments, as that person who made that comment to me, I'm certain probably doesn't remember that 30 years later, but I do.
Right. It was kind of defining for you.
It was.
Yeah.
It was. And I still dated that person.
You still said, okay, love me some more,
for
please?
a long time. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I think that there are, so that, right, that's like an individual standard. We talked about societal standard and, positioning in front of the camera and looking good to take those pictures and deleting all of the, the bad takes and making sure that you're only posting the really great ones. We talked about like the medical industry and really that comparison, whether, we realize it or not, it's also a comparison of what's normal and what's not normal and all of those things, but also that individual aspect of just the pressure, right? Comments people make, or, maybe, well, what does my mother look like?
Oh, that's a big comment.
Yeah.
Women hear that all the time.
Yeah.
I was at a party. This was a few years ago. It was my youngest daughter was having her 21st birthday party, and there was a young fella there, and I'm being kind. He made a comment to my daughter's boyfriend, fiance maybe at the time. about how lucky he was because his fiance, my daughter, was going to look like me. And I was like, I'm still speechless about it. Like, we can all make different choices, and or life makes choices for us sometimes, right? I mean, it never occurs to me to look at somebody's dad, a man's dad, and think, oh, that's who I'm going to be married to in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years from now. That doesn't ever occur to me.
I don't know that even makes logical sense, right? Like, DNA is like all over the place. It doesn't mean that you're going to look like your mother. I have 2 daughters, and my older daughter takes after her father, right? In her body shape and style. So if anybody would ever look at me and compare me to, like, say, oh, you're going to look like that when you're, oh, that's not even true.
Right.
Like, she'd have to shrink like 6 inches, right? And, take all that extra height and put it into her butt. And she that's just not the way it is.
Way. Right. My older daughter's the same way. She has my face. She does not have my body shape. But when he said that, I was kind of taken aback. I didn't realize that, and he's very young, in his early 20s at the time. He's a fella, not a fellow, a fella. I didn't realize that those fellas were looking at women their age and then looking at their moms and saying, yep, that's the one I want because she'll look like that older lady there. And I like the way that older lady looks.
Well, first, gross. And secondly, like it's false. So you might as well take that theory and, put it in your fella pocket.
And
because it doesn't even make any sense.
This is why we're talking about
Jesus.
This is why we are doing Riding Sidesaddle, because that is a misnomer that we just need to be done with.
That's just dumb.
But it made me feel really uncomfortable. Right. And it also made me feel like now I'm being compared to my daughter who's 21.
Right.
That none of that should be happening.
Right. Not to mention, there's how old were you when you had your youngest?
26, I think.
Okay. So what kid, right? She's 21 now. I can't do math in my head.
I don't know.
Whatever.
I don't know.
Right.
40 something.
Yeah. When I was 21, I certainly didn't want to be like, oh, awesome. I look like my 40 some mother. Thanks.
Right.
Right. No matter, you could have looked you could have looked spectacular.
I did.
Yeah, I'm sure you did. But again, why would you ever compare yourself to a 21-year-old or a 21 compare themselves to a 40-something-year-old?
Right.
Thank you.
Right.
Yeah, that's just dumb.
Well, it is dumb, but it is one of those things. Again, the things that people say that stick with you.
Agree.
That was the whole point of that story.
Yeah, it's absolutely. I know it happens.
It made me uncomfortable, and it made me. I really did not like being compared to my daughter, and vice versa.
Exactly.
She's not me, and I'm not her, and it is okay to be individuals. It is okay to feel good in your body, no matter what it looks like.
Right.
If you feel good in it, then you feel good in it, and if you don't, you have the power to change that. I'm getting older. It is hard for me to lug a giant basket of laundry up and down the stairs. But that is something I could change. Mm-hmm. That is something I could work on. That is a goal that feels good to me.
Mm-hmm.
Working out really hard and changing my diet so I can look like my 20-year-old daughter does not feel good to me at all.
Right. That doesn't feel like a healthy goal.
Right? No, not at all.
Outcome to try to achieve.
No.
Yeah. My mom says a phrase. I can't think of the exact phrase now, but she does talk about that exact comment where you are only going to be this young once, right? So appreciate where you are in this moment because you will never look like this again.
That is so interesting because I do that with my kids. Well, and now they're grown, but when they were little, embrace this moment because they're never going to be this age again. They're never going to be this little. They're never going to be this cute, dressed like this, whatever it is. This will come and go, and once it's gone, it's gone.
That's right.
But I've never attached that to myself.
Mm,
Ooh, that feels very powerful.
that's interesting.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Embrace this moment, because you're never going to look like this again.
That's right. You will be a day older tomorrow,
Right.
and a week older,
And
and a
before
month
you know
older.
it, you'll blink and it's 10 or 20 years older. And then you're wondering, where did all that time go? And how come I don't have a picture of myself?
And I can't believe I felt so shitty about myself during that
Yeah.
period of time. Like, when did I feel good about myself? Maybe now I'm 60 and 70 and 80 years old, and I can't remember
Oh,
a time
boy.
that I felt good about myself until it was too late.
Right.
Until you're looking back at a picture and said, man, I wish I would have realized that.
So I'm 51. I've been doing that my whole life.
Yeah, let's stop.
Ooh,
That
yeah.
sucks.
That does suck.
Let's stop doing that.
Yeah. Let's.
Okay.
Deal.
Okay.
Well,
That's
on
it.
that note,
Yeah. I guess we have to figure out a
guess-
strategy, because this is 50 years of...
yeah, 50 years of training here.
That's right.
Well, 30 years for sure. I don't know that I felt like that before I was 20, but
As soon as that little letter B came out, I think that's the day that happened.
once I knew I had a bubble butt, and J-Lo wasn't around to tell me it was cool.
Right.
Oh, man. Well, all right. Here it is, the end of our first episode, Riding Sidesaddle.
Thank you.
Bye.